Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar, and I want to tell a little story before I bring on today's guest, which is Bryon Bos. About a month ago, I was interviewing Chris Hurst. He's a keyboard player for Kelly Pickler. And after the interview, he and I were talking, and he was playing this music. No, I listened to his music online, and we were talking while he was online. I said, oh my God, who is singing that? That guy's voice is amazing. And he goes, oh, that's my buddy Bryon. I said, give me that guy. I want to interview him. He's awesome. And here he is. So today we have Bryon Bos. Bryon's a singer, songwriter, and guitarist. He's got over 100 songs recorded, either personally or by independent artists. He started singing on stage at the ripe old age of 5. He was on the radio live at 8 years of age. He had a choir, sang in a choir around the U.S. at 12 years of age for youth events, camps, and mega churches, starting at 19 years old, and he recorded one full-length live record, a Christmas EP, and 2 other EPs. At 29, he went full-time into music, recording an EP with Aaron Sterling, who plays drums for Taylor Swift, John Mayer, and Kelly Clarkson, and Jonathan Aarons, who plays bass for Sheryl Crow and Jewel, as well as some other A-list musicians. He wrote and recorded the theme song for a TV show called Coming Home, and he recorded an EP with Coming Home on it, and we're going to talk about that because it's a really cool story behind that. He also sang the national anthem for the Oakland Raiders, and Al Davis apparently disciplined him for the way he sang it. No, that's just a joke. No, he did sing the national anthem for the Oakland Raiders and for the Los Angeles Lakers, as well as many other minor league teams and military organizations, which was probably really cool doing it for the military. He's directed live bands with touring and session musicians from all genres that have played for everyone, from bands like One Republic to Taylor Swift, Katy Perry, Foo Fighters, Mariah Carey, Phil Collins, Carrie Underwood, Florida Georgia Line, and so on. And he has holds with major artists for songwriting, but no major cuts so far, and we'll explain what that means. And the cool thing about Bryon is he's excelled in 2 separate unrelated fields, and that's really hard to do. It's hard enough to master one thing, but he's actually mastered 2 things. He was a competitor on the Gordon Ramsay show, The F Word, and him and his wife have competed and won many finalist prizes in the competitive cooking world, and they're actually sponsored by a handful of brands in the food world, and we'll talk about that as well. So I want to welcome Bryon Bos to the show. Very cool guy, real genuine guy, and thank you for coming, man.
Thanks so much, Craig, and thanks for the kind words. I'm blushing here. You can't see it, but I feel very humbled, man.
Hey, well, the truth, that's it. Hey, so what are you working on now that you're most excited about?
Well, yeah, that's a loaded question because I'm excited about everything. I get pumped up about anything I'm doing at the moment, and I guess maybe I'm just one of those like momentary guys, you know. But truth is, my wife and I, you said something about the food stuff and everything. Well, a lot of that triggered us to actually do a family vlog. And we've been told basically for a few years now, like, you guys should do a vlog. You guys should do a family thing. You know, your kids are so cute, all this stuff and everything. Lucky thing they look like their mom. But for us, we were like, you know, let's do this. Let's actually do it. And the show, the Gordon Ramsay show, actually triggered us to actually go get what we needed and say, okay, we're going to do this thing for real. So we started a family vlog, and we're doing everything from food to just reality and life to music, obviously, to just fun, goofy, stupid stuff. And I would say that is definitely what I'm most excited about right now. And because that's pushed more things even in the music world, like I literally went out and revamped buying everything that I needed to have my home studio actually worth something and basically that I could actually record good quality and basically I could do my own vocals and send good signals over to guys who are doing demos or whatever it might be. So that triggered that, pushed me into that. So all of it has kind of funneled into, you know, my wife's side of everything is food, mine's music. So together we're kind of punching this family vlog, this type of thing where we're like, okay, this will push me to do things in the music world. It'll push you to do things in the food world. Let's bring it together and have some fun in it. So that's what I'm most excited about.
Where can people find that? Is that on YouTube?
Yeah, our YouTube is actually just the Bos Life, the Bos Life. Great. And then all the, Facebook and Instagram is the Bos Life TV and stuff like that. So, but once you get to YouTube, you can find the rest of it.
Awesome. You are a guy that's got high energy, so I could understand why you're excited about everything. So that makes a ton of sense. Let me ask you about songwriting.
Yep.
How did you get into it? And I guess, from an outsider, this whole process is a bit of a mystery. It's like being a unicorn. People see them, they've kind of heard about them, but do they really, they've seen pictures of them. How does this whole process work, becoming a songwriter? And, how do the first steps get you to record a song?
Well, what's funny about being a songwriter is I feel it's a very unfair world, because the fact is that just because somebody is not having songs, played on the radio, or even, maybe they're only playing in small little bars around their house. I don't know. Or maybe they're playing in backyards. I have no idea what they're doing. It doesn't make them not a songwriter if they're writing songs. But the difference between a songwriter who is basically just an artist and a songwriter who's a professional who's being paid for it, those two worlds are completely different. And it's very hard to meld the two, because I think once a creative guy who's writing songs gets into the professional world, he goes, holy crap, this is not what I thought. And a lot of people lose their creativity. They feel like, oh, I don't know how to be creative anymore when I'm put under the gun and saying, okay, I need you to write 5 songs right now, and basically by the end of the month, we need 3 songs from you, or whatever it might be. I feel like I'm the opposite of that. I thrive on that type of thing where somebody's like, hey, we need to get this EP done by next month, and we haven't started yet. Okay, well, that's fine. We can get this done as long as the guy who's mixing and, engineering and everything is cool with the time frame. Let's do it. What do we need? We need to write some songs. We need them done quick here. I'm better under pressure like that. So when I was young, my parents were all into Southern gospel and, Christian music at the time and everything. And I just thought as a kid, if I was singing all over different church stuff and everything, well, I might as well write my own songs, right? I can have fun doing that. So I just started coming up with ideas. And, I remember, I think I was 11 or 12, and I had my first thing that I wrote, and I showed my mom. And I was like, hey, Mom, what do you think about this? And she was like, wow, that's really good, And I didn't, going through high school, I was kind of into the grunge scene and punk rock scene, and kind of, left all that to listen to a bunch of hip hop and all different types of things. I had so many stages, man. But through all of that, I didn't find myself writing as much. I would come up with ideas where I'd sing something in my head. And then after high school was when I started really writing. And again, most of it, as you were talking earlier, just kind of talking about what mostly I've done in my life. A lot of it is centered around that church world. And so, I wrote a lot of songs in that realm. And I always had things in the back of my head or in a book written down, or just anywhere where I was like, I want to write something pop, or I want to write something rock, or I want to write something country, whatever it might be. And I had those things, but I had no outlet for them. So, I had no avenue. Let
me pause one second. When you said you were writing songs, were you writing lyrics or lyrics and music behind it?
I always wrote everything myself.
Okay.
Until I moved to Nashville and got into more co-writers, type things. I kind of always just did everything myself. I take that back. There's plenty of times where it was me and a buddy, but it was, always lyrics and music together, and I don't separate the two real well myself. Like,
interesting.
If you wanted poetry, then sure, let's write poetry. Like, that's, to me, that is there poetry in songwriting? Absolutely. But a song is a song, when I'm thinking of lyrics, I'm thinking of a melody. I'm thinking of where this song's going to go. Like, how does it feel? You know, it's not just, hey, girl, why don't you come over here? Let's have a good time. Like, I'm thinking, hey, girl, why don't you come over here? I'm just saying, like,
yeah. You when you think of expressing yourself in that mode, the expression is the whole thing completed. It's not one. Yeah, that's interesting. That's really interesting.
I can't separate if I can't separate the rhythmic pattern, like in my mind, then it's the same thing for me. Like, I can't separate the tune or the musical, aspect of it, because even in poetry, there's a rhythmic pattern, but for me, in my mind, like when you have that in your head and it's like you hear this rhythm, I also hear a musical thing. Otherwise, it's not a song to me. Like, it doesn't work that way in my head.
Yeah.
For other people, I'm sure everybody's different, but for me, I can't separate the two,
Very interesting. So you start writing these songs, and then like how did they all of a sudden get recorded by an artist? How does that whole process work? I think that's what's kind of the mystery.
Okay, well, I mean, first off, when I started writing at 19, 20 years old, when it was like, okay, I'm actually going to start writing my own songs that I can do in church or whatever it might be, because I had that liberty that I could do that, So I started doing that. Well, a buddy of mine, Jonathan, who you mentioned him earlier, he's played for a lot of people, but he's also done a lot of, now he's pushing along more the side of producing and working behind the scenes. And he's done some fantastic stuff, and he's done a lot of pre-production for, some of the best producers in the world. I mean, I know he's best of friends with Buzz B, who is, in my opinion, one of the best in the world. I mean, he just did Maren Morris's record. Carly Pearce's stuff is coming out. That's ridiculous. I mean, he wrote Pink songs. He's got so much out there, but Jonathan and him are best of friends. And, Jonathan and I grew up in the same church, and in my 20s, we basically kind of reconnected because he was gone for a while. He went to Berkeley, and then actually went to MI and then went to Berkeley, and he was just doing a lot.
MI? What's MI?
MI, Musicians Institute. It's in Hollywood.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah.
So he's a fantastic musician, but at that time when we were both in our 20s, he was doing a lot more, working towards doing more recording and producing and stuff. So we just connected, and he was like, what do you want to do, man? And so we started recording songs for me, for whatever it might be. He would come to me with random people like, hey man, I got this girl that wants to do an EP. She needs some songs. They're not that good. He's like, got her just like, he's like, man, I just don't want to, like, me, man. I want to put, if I'm going to put something together, I want it to feel good as well. And so we would write songs together, and he'd ask me, like, you got anything like along this type of thing? I mean, dude, this is 15 years ago, 12 to 15 to 16 years ago. So I would have to really go back through all my stuff to find like who we wrote songs for and, where they went and everything. But at that time, it wasn't a business to me. It wasn't, I wasn't even a professional in my mind. I was just like, oh, me and my buddy, he's got this, this girl's recording some stuff, or this dude's recording some stuff, or this place wants to do an album with Christmas stuff, or whatever it was. It was like, yeah, I can write. Sure. What do you want? And I always found myself like, hey man, so could you have something by like, what do you got next week? What do you got the week after? And I'm like, I don't know. I'm working 60 hours a week, and I got 2 kids. I'm a single dad.
What were you doing then work-wise? What kind of work were you doing work-wise?
I did a few different things in my 20s, but for the most part, I did a lot of tower work. So I used to climb towers.
Wow.
And for cellular stuff, and I ended up more along the side of doing testing and kind of their, network type stuff. But I was never, let's put it this way, Craig, and I think anybody can relate to this. Most of us work because we have to support something.
Or someone.
We have to support a life, know, and some of us get to do a job that we love to do. Most of us do a job that we tolerate, or we find ourselves in a place where we go, you know what, I can do this. I mean, I picked going to school for this, so I'm going to work this job.
Right.
And I enjoy parts of it.
Right.
You know, but I didn't enjoy any of it, Craig. I just wanted to be a musician. I just wanted to do music. And I was like, whatever. I chose to have children pretty early in life. And so I've got to pay the bills. So I worked and found time for music alongside of that. And it was a bummer because I feel like, you know, I would hope that everybody believes that they're born to do something. Like you just feel like, man, you got a purpose in life or something. At least maybe you're just born with a talent or a gifting or something. And you go, man, I just feel like I was always supposed to do this in life. Well, for me, I don't know, man. It was always music. It was always singing. It always had something to do with that. And, you know, it was never pushed on me. But yeah, my mom set me on the coffee table when I was, you know, little one and said, here, sing for everybody. You know, I mean, that's kind of what I always wanted to do, but had to work.
Sure.
So I worked and found time to write for random things until I got to, you know, about 29 years old. And then actually my opportunities came a little better, you know?
Let's talk about, I want to talk about that in 1 second, but you are originally from California?
Yeah, I was born in Bellflower.
Where's that?
Which is right outside of Long Beach.
Okay.
Yeah, Los Angeles County. I was born there and raised mostly there. We moved inland when I was a teenager, and I lived in a town called Corona for, about 20 years.
How was your childhood? What kind of childhood did you have?
I had a great childhood. I had a great mom and dad. A lot of love in the house. They were always singing and doing stuff. My dad did a lot of what I've done in life. He worked full time for a long time and did, you know, his church music stuff, you know, and they always were song leaders in the church or whatever. Every church calls them something different, and they sang a lot. My dad sang a lot of Southern gospel stuff when I was really little. But my dad ended up becoming a pastor, so I was one of those pastor's kids. So you can imagine, later on in life, I was a real rebel. But but other than that, I mean, my dad was always present. They were both loving. I got two brothers. We got along. Like, did we fight like brothers do? Sure, but I can't tell you, like, you watch a movie or you hear about brothers who like fist fight, socking them, you know, each other in the face and everything. We never did that.
Yeah.
I mean, we just never did. I don't know. I had a great family, great raising. Like, I don't know.
Are your brothers into music, or any of your brothers involved in music? They are.
My youngest brother Johnny, he went to MI, Musicians Institute, for a couple years, and he actually had a full-time job at a church for a while as well, a big church in California. And he's a fantastic bass player, but he's also a great singer, songwriter. He more has done songwriting just himself, or, you know, kind of just because he loves it. But he had a couple songs get placed on TV stuff. He had one of his songs on one of the American Idol shows. It was like going to commercial. They used one of his tunes, and it was him singing and everything. And it was like a 30-second spot. It was really cool.
That's like sync. A lot of guys I've interviewed do a lot of sync work, and it's really good work. It's very, very demanding, but it's
the placement stuff is killer, man.
It's very difficult, you know, but it's good work.
But once you get in,
right. As long as you continue producing. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. So anyway, my other brother, not really. I mean, he can sing, and I think he does a little bit more in like live audio stuff. He helps out sound stuff and everything like that. He enjoys that. But he might sing a little bit here and there because my dad still has a small church, and he's very involved there. But anyhow.
Were your parents from the South? Like, I'm shocked how popular Southern gospel churches are out in California. That's like, interesting.
But you know what? I think some people understand this. Some people would have no idea. But the fact is all Christian music comes out of Nashville. I mean,
that would make sense.
Don't get me wrong. There's artists all over the world. But the fact is like all of the distribution companies, the labels, almost all of them I mean, they all come out of Nashville.
Right.
So and back in the 80s, like everything stemmed from that Southern gospel thing into when it became that contemporary Christian music, which the funny thing is like you find a guy like Dan Huff. Dan Huff produced, gosh, dude, so much stuff in the past as far as like some of the biggest country records ever. And he came from Christian music. I mean, dude, like so many of the countryside that are doing the biggest stuff today that are still, a big part of everything, they all intermingled within Christian music because Nashville was a hub for all of that. So naturally, when I heard music growing up, I heard the twang. I heard people would sing songs and they got that little bit of a draw to them and everything. And I'm watching my favorite artists growing up and they got a Southern draw. I'm from Southern California saying, hey, dude, man, this is great, bro. and I come, but yet when I sing, I feel like I've always had a little bit of that kind of Southern sound. Randomly, people will be like, are you from the South? And I'm like, no, I'm actually from the beach.
But I can't believe that there's so much Southern, the church influence out there. Musically, I can understand that what you just said. It makes sense, but I'm shocked that there's, I guess I'm an East Coast guy, so I know nothing about California.
Well,
so I guess
it's a whole different world in the East Coast with
right.
And stuff. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but I didn't figure California would have so much of a Southern religious influence out there. That's really, I find that interesting.
LA has a lot of that too. I mean, I think it comes from that whole Los Angeles scene because I believe there was such a pairing between Los Angeles and Nashville, and how many musicians from Nashville want to move to LA, and how many musicians want to move to Nashville. And what they end up doing is kind of doing this back and forth, like, oh yeah, I'm flying to Nashville doing some sessions out there. I'm flying to LA and doing some sessions out there. And it's becoming even more and more now. But I would imagine, I knew nothing about it when I was a kid, but I would imagine it was still that it was the same back then.
Yeah.
So there was probably a lot of intermingling between all of it, and to be honest, in the churches back in those days, the artists that came through as guests that came to perform for whether it was events or conventions or crusades or whatever they would have were always, a lot of them came out of Nashville, man, and their bands were the same as the country artist bands. Those musicians, I think, Craig, you'll find probably the more and more, guys you've talked to and you talk to, like how many intermingle in that realm.
Yeah. Quite a bit.
Crazy. Yeah, it's crazy, Anyhow,
I think some of this is because I grew up in actual New York City itself, so I think it's just a mystery. It's like the Jets and the Sharks. It's like when you grow up in New York City, it's almost like, it's just like California. We don't recognize them. It's very weird. New York City is a very ethnocentric place. Like there's a famous cartoon that was in the New Yorker magazine where, the perception of the world to the New Yorkers. You have New York, you have New Jersey, and then like everything else is just like a blur. Like we really don't. It's a weird place like that. We're so caught up in ourselves, kind of. It's just weird. Everything's foreign. Texas, we kind of are aware of.
Yeah, well, everybody else around you just thinks it's just Manhattan, right?
Yeah, right.
Manhattan.
Yeah. And I grew up actually in the Bronx, which is like one of the worst places to grow up. And
I've been there.
So
been through. Took the subway through.
Oh, that's your brave man.
Oh, it was awesome, man.
Okay, talk about your involvement in coming home, because you told me that story and it was a really nice story. I think a lot of people would like to hear that. How'd you get involved in it, and how did it, matriculate? How did it, pan out?
Well, I had a friend I met through some other people that knew him. His name's Matt Rogers. And actually, when I was on staff at a church, he showed up one Sunday, and we had friends that had been telling us for a long time, man, you got to, or he says the same thing, which I was like, why did anybody care about you meeting me? Like me meeting you, sure. Because he was on American Idol. Like he was on American Idol. He's done some cool stuff. He hosted some television shows and some different things. And so, I had a lot of people around me going, man, you need to connect with Matt Rogers. You just never know, man. Like he's just such a great guy. And he said the same thing. He's like, yeah, man, everybody told me like I should connect with you. And I'm like, well, I don't know how much I got to offer you, man. He's like, well, we should get together, man. We should sing some stuff together, And I'm not that type of guy. Like, when people say like, man, let's get together and jam. I'm like, I don't want to freaking jam, dude. Like, I'm either gonna practice for performing, or I'm gonna be performing, or I just don't have time. Like, I guess that's been my life, Like,
yeah, that's interesting. I'm surprised because you seem like so easygoing. Like, I would figure you'd be like hanging out.
I would never tell somebody, no, I don't want to jam with you, man.
But inside you were like, oh my God.
I would always find a way to go, oh yeah. And then just never get to it. Because it's like, I don't know, man. For me, like I want to have a purpose in what I'm doing. So when he said that, I was like, yeah, sure. Like, let's get together sometime, And it was about 2 months later after I saw him a handful of times. He gave me his number. I gave him mine. I mean, I feel like maybe we talked on the phone a couple times before this, but he called me randomly on a Saturday, and I was walking into a place. I was teaching vocal classes for this agency group thing, and most of it was teenagers and kids. And I was walking in, and I get a phone call, and I'm like, I was actually 45 minutes early, I think. So I had planned to be early. It was my first session of this next. I forget what they called it, but I had done it. I had done the class 2 times before. It's like 6 to 8 weeks, and this one was my first week of this next set of weeks, or set of classes. And anyhow, so I wanted to be there early to set up and make sure I was good to go, And I get this call, and I look at it. It's Matt Rogers, and I'm like, I almost didn't answer it because I'm like, frick, man, I really don't have time to talk right now. I got to go do this, And I know him and I, once we get to talking, like we're gonna just get to talking. Well, I just thought, nah, I'm going to answer it. So I answer it, and he goes, dude, okay, listen, I know we've been talking about getting together. And he's like, dude, he's the hugest personality you'll meet. Like, he's fantastic. He's one of my best friends.
He's in Nashville?
He's actually in, he's in Spring Hill.
Okay.
So he lives out here now. He just moved out here, too. I'll get.
Where is he originally out of?
He's originally from California as well.
Okay.
So Southern California. So this is where we met, in Southern California. This is 7 years ago, probably.
Okay.
And he says, I'm going to be hosting this show. They're going to have me host this TV show, and they don't have a name for it yet, but it's about soldiers coming home from war and the surprise reunions with their family. And I was like, okay, that's cool, man. That's great. He said it's going to be on Lifetime. They don't have a name for it yet. They're kind of rolling around a couple of different things. But he said, I told him, let me sing the theme song. And he said, the executive producer was like, okay, well, give me something. Like what? Like, yeah, give me a song then, let me hear something. And he said, dude, can we write a song? And you gotta, like, I'm sure somebody's going to be listening to this going, really? That's how that works? Like, no, that's not how it works. But yes, absolutely. Yeah. And it can work anyway. I mean, we're,
But that fit your model now, because it wasn't random jamming. It's like, okay, I have a function, a purpose, and a deadline. Right. So that now you are motivated, though, because it wasn't like, hey, let's just write with some non-specific purpose.
Sing something. What am I going to do? What are you going to do? You're going to pull out your little karaoke box and you're not going to sit on the couch and sing? No.
Right.
So anyways,
okay.
He says, dude, like, we got to come up with something fast. Like, can you, like, and I said, okay, well, give me, I got to go do this class thing, man. I said, give me a couple hours. I'll come up with something. And he's like, listen, they're coming home, surprising their families, military, this, that, and dude, I got to be honest with you. Here's the thing. Like, I know a lot of people write from their pain and write from their experience and write from, the depths of who they are. I don't know. I'm weird, man. I just write from an imaginary place. Yeah. Like, I feel like I'm in this cuckoo world of like, oh, you want me to write about that? All right, I'll figure it out. Something in my head. Like, I guess I have a weird imagination, because that was the weirdest thing for me, because I don't have any family members in the military. I have a cousin, and we grew up together, but as he got older, I got older. He's a little bit younger than me. He went away to the military for a while, and we didn't have a lot of contact. So I wasn't close enough to know that whole life and that experience and what it feels like to be a family member of somebody who's gone for months at a time or years at a time. I didn't know that. So I had to I don't know, man. My head just went whoop. All right, what comes up? And I literally walked into that classroom. Nobody was there. Like I said, I was probably about 45 minutes early. I told him I got to go. So the conversation was literally probably as long as you and I just had at that moment,
Right.
And so I walked in. I had my guitar with me because I always did at those classes. And I pulled it out and I was like, all right, let's see. And I just started strumming a couple chords, and I started thinking of this, okay, what would it be? I mean, for me, the only thing that would come to mind would be coming home. I'm coming home,
Mm-hmm.
And so I didn't want it. The first thing that hit my head was Chris Daughtry's "I'm Coming Home."
Yeah.
And I was, no, God, get that out of your head.
Yeah, that's got to be tough when you have a, yeah.
Like that. Don't even think that realm, because as a songwriter, I think it's so easy to think off of somebody else's success that you can have success. You can hear somebody else do something and go, I could do that. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of times and plenty of songs that are inspired by something else.
Sure.
In sense of a type of song or a type of melody or a type of, I don't know, a dynamic or whatever it might be. But in my mind, I could not get away from the words "I'm coming home." And I was like, okay, so what? So what? He did it, but this is going to be for a TV show. I don't want to lose those words. I'm going to use those words, And
well, I think as a writer, because I do the same thing, writing ad copy. Quite frankly, you want to use things as idea prompts, and then that's it. You want to let it go. You want to use something as a prompt to spur you on to something, not as a, let me rework my version of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's just something to motivate you or inspire you more than that.
Exactly.
Yeah. I
feel like as an artist, anybody has to be inspired by something.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely those ones out there that have their own, it's all in them and it just comes out,
Sure.
and they can be locked up in a room for years and just art just comes out of them. That happens. And I don't know if I'm that type of guy or not. I mean, maybe because I'm a crazy imaginatory person, maybe a little bit, but in this case, I just thought, okay, what can I put myself in the shoes of somebody who is experiencing this right now? And then I thought, no, I want to go from the soldier's perspective. I want to go from that guy who is, he's coming home to his family. What does it feel like? And I will tell you this, man, to this day, when I really think about the lyrics of that song, and when I think about that, it came from nothing and it just came out. I still get teary-eyed because of all the experiences that we went through, meeting people in it. But anyhow, 30 minutes, man, I was 10 minutes away from the class starting and people showing up, and I had come up with a chorus. And I called him. He didn't answer. I'm sorry. I take that back. I did not call him. I recorded it on a voice memo, and I texted him that voice memo, and he tried to call me right then, and I didn't answer because I was going into the class.
Sure.
And his voicemail, which I got at the end of the 2 hours, I got 3 voicemails from him because I did a 2-hour class. And the first voicemail was, "What? Dude, that's fantastic. I'm sending it over right now." And the second voicemail was like, "Come on, man, call me back, dude." And then the third voicemail was, I sent it to the executive producer, and I won't say who he was, but he said, I sent it to the executive producer, and he said, "I love it. Where's the rest of it?"
Awesome.
And that was the third voicemail. I called him back, and he said, "When can we finish this?" And I said, he goes, "And who should we do it with?" And I said, "Well, we're going to do it with Jonathan," who's the guy I was talking to you.
Yeah, sure.
I said, "We're going to do it with Jonathan." So we called Jonathan. Jonathan said, "Let's do it tomorrow afternoon." I can do it tomorrow afternoon. So that was a Sunday afternoon. We got together. We finished writing the song together, and Jonathan started on the production side of it and brought in everybody, all the same guys. I'm trying to remember who all played on that one, but I'm pretty sure it was I'm pretty sure it was like, yeah, it might have been a guy named Ben. It might not have been Aaron Sterling at that time on that one. But that whole group of guys, like Aaron Sterling is arguably the most sought after drummer in the world. And I mean, he's played for anybody and everybody. And every musician that I know that I meet now, all these young kids are like, oh my God, like he's God to them, you know? Right. And he is fantastic. And he is arguably one of the best in the world. And I just got fortunate enough he played on my stuff because him and Jonathan were friends and they played a lot of gigs together. Right. So I got lucky. I mean, really, to be honest, like he's not my friend. It's not like I can like give him a shout and say, hey man, you want to play on my next record, bro? Like he'd be like, who is this? And if I said my name maybe like 15 times, he might be like, wait a minute, why do I know that name? Oh, okay, now I remember.
Well, you know the old expression, I'd rather be lucky than good, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So anyhow, Jonathan recorded the music and Matt and I went in and recorded the vocals. Matt did most of the lead vocal on that one because he was the host of that TV show and that was the deal. Like, you know, and so I just sang backups on it. And the show loved it. It was the theme song. We made a little bit of money from it and we ended up creating a little duo and saying, hey man, let's do a full EP and let's put that song on it with a few other country tunes. Let's write them and have some fun.
Cool. But you know what? I heard Chris Martin from Coldplay one time in an interview, and he basically said that their two or three biggest songs they ever written, he said he wrote them in 10 or 15 minutes. And I think sometimes, like I've seen this in business a lot, where things that sometimes the universe supports something.
Yeah.
And it's just almost like meant to be in a sense, when it's like organic and natural and everything falls into place. And sometimes you have to kill yourself and those things don't necessarily matriculate, you know?
Yeah.
And so I'm not surprised that you know that this took you all of 30 minutes under the gun before your class started to basically nail the whole thing down, because it just sounded like, you know, this was like part of your like calling or whatever you want to call it, but the universe, you know, was behind you on that 110%, and you know,
and it really is a fantastic song. And I mean, it did take a couple hours for us to, you know, come together and write the verses and really tell the story, you know, and make it feel right. Because I'll be honest with you, Craig, like when you're entertaining somebody, that's one thing. Like if you're, you know, and obviously you want every song to have somewhat of a story or some, it's got to have a feel somewhere in there, whether that feel is dark, or whether that feel is fun, or whether that feel is let's party, whatever it is, it's got to feel. Well, this song was different because in my mind, I just kept thinking like, no, this is not just, we're not entertaining people with this, man. This is people's lives. Like, and I didn't think of it as like, oh my God, like, we're going to be like life changers right now. But at the same time, like when people watch that show, it was such a heartfelt show. Oh, yeah. And I think we knew it was going to be. So it was like, you're not just going to write some piece of crap little song that kind of fits the mood. Like, oh, that's cool. Like, it's great. And even though the only part you really hear on the show is, I'm coming home. That's all you hear on the show. So you don't hear the verses. You don't hear, you know, the rest of the chorus and everything. I mean, there is a small part of it that was played, but it just meant so much. It was like these guys have given their lives. A lot of them have given their limbs, and they show up home and their 5-year-old is in kindergarten, and they walk into the classroom and the kid's crying, you know, because his dad comes home, and it still breaks me up because I've never experienced that. I don't know that in life. Like I told you, like I had a great upbringing. Like my family was there. They weren't gone, but to see that. And we got to be there in the stories and perform for different, you know, events that had military there, and guys who earned, you know, were awarded Purple Hearts and stuff. A Navy SEAL who he lost his leg. I mean, he had damage all over his body. He has a Purple Heart. He stands on stage as the keynote speaker for this big event thing. We sing the song Coming Home, and he comes up after and says, I just want to let you guys know how much that song means to us. And he's got tears in his eyes. And
wow.
I'm like,
I got goosebumps just hearing that, man, to tell you the truth.
I was like, are you kidding me, man? Yeah. I'm the one who's honored.
Yeah.
I'm a songwriter. What is like, I wrote a story about something. You lived this story, man. I'm the one,
Well, I think that goes to show why music is such a compelling force in the world and why people are so, I know for myself, I can't think of a day in the last probably 48 years where I have not listened to music, and I wouldn't have a day. It's like it's a necessary, it's a necessary thing. It does something to me that nothing else can do, and it's irreplaceable. And that's just part of an extension of what that's just you just got validation from somebody directly, but obviously it's a very powerful force.
From one of my favorite movies of all time, Isn't It Wild, Man?
Oh, is that Fast?
Point Break.
What's that? Oh no, I haven't seen that in ages. Is that with Patrick Swayze?
Point Break.
That was just on. They were just running it here recently. That's quite funny.
I was a little California kid,
surfer dude,
surfing and robbing banks. I'm all about
dude. Hey, talk about the Raiders, man. They've actually been my favorite, and I've been a Raider fan growing up in the Bronx. Go figure. I don't know how the hell that happened, but
serious?
Yeah. How did that come about that you got the opportunity to sing the national anthem for them, and what was that like?
It was Matt. So they did.
When was this, by the way?
Huh?
When was? Oh, this is back related to the song.
2012. So
Al Davis was still alive then, right?
Amy Trask was still the president of operations, and I only say that because I know. So Matt, they did a coming home episode at the Raiders game, and it was a halftime show. I don't know if you remember that at all, or if anybody remember that, but they had a halftime show where they had this kid was supposed to hold the ball for a kicker. I think, if I'm telling this story right, I'm trying to remember. I think it was the kid holding the ball for a kicker, or no, I'm sorry. It was a guy in a Raiders, he was wearing the whole uniform, pads, everything, helmet, holding the ball for this kid to kick. The kid kicked it. The guy got up and said, great job, took the helmet off, and it was the kid's dad.
Oh, wow. How cool is that? That is awesome.
Matt was there, hosted the show. He did not get to sing for that, but he got to meet the whole organization, and they said, we'd love to have you come back and do the national anthem. And he said, I don't want to do it by myself. Like, me and Bryon are going to do it because that's what we do.
Right.
And they're like, great. So we did it, and or they scheduled it. It was the last game of the season against the Chargers, and it was one of my favorite experiences in life. The Raider fans are the worst if you're their enemy, and if you're the other team.
Yeah, man, they're the most intense.
They are the best when you're with them. Like, they were so fantastic. The Black Hole wouldn't stop hugging us and you guys are awesome.
Very cool.
It was so rad. And Amy Trask sent an incredible email saying how great how great a job we did, and it just felt so good. It was all Matt. I mean, I got most of those opportunities because of him and because of the show and writing that song, but all that came through that song.
That doesn't discount it.
No, it doesn't.
Somebody's got to refer somebody to do something, It doesn't mean
I still got to be there with him.
You know what I've learned, man? Sometimes, and I've been very guilty of this, at times of my life, I have equated pain with reward. Like, sometimes you feel, I'll speak for me, I feel, and I don't anymore, that when you pay a steep price for something, then there's a deserving reward. But that's voodoo bullshit that goes on in our heads, in my head in this case. I'm speaking for myself. Because the amount of pain you go through is a mutually exclusive to the amount of reward. Now, sometimes, and obviously, if you do sacrifice a lot and do go through pain and you get a reward, that's great, and you feel awesome. You feel like, man, I got my just desserts. But the amount of struggle and the amount of success are mutually exclusive, and one is not necessarily tied to the other. Work ethic, hard work, sure, that's definitely tied. Commitment, definitely tied. But pain, no. And I've learned that. And so, like, you know, I try to be like, we talked about this the other night. We said, hey, I'll be happy to help you. And I felt awkward because I'm like, oh, man. Right? Because I'm like, oh, well, I'm not in struggle. That was a part of me that's saying, oh, man, I haven't struggled enough with this guy to get, to him to help me out with something, you know?
That's a whole other conversation in itself, man.
Yeah,
I mean,
sure.
Everything that you just said is like, I feel it every day. Every day when I get myself into a place of like, why isn't this happening? Or why hasn't this happened? Why haven't we gotten a call back about this? Or whatever it might be. And the pain of what I'm doing in that moment and feeling like I'm so tired of this, or I'm so sick of going through this, or whatever it might be. Don't I get my reward? Ain't I supposed to get something for fighting so hard? You know,
maybe
you get nothing, and you get nothing out of it, and you're like, what
maybe,
the hell is
maybe
that
not.
for?
I know. And
you know,
I've just learned to sort of like, and it sometimes I feel like I'm giving up, but I've just learned to like accept where I am in any given situation now, and just know, like, I have this thing on my wall. It says there's only 3 reasons you will not be successful. Number 1, you don't try new things. Number 2, you don't learn from what you try. Or number 3, you give up. So for me, I always learn from what I try, and I just make sure I keep trying new things and I don't give up, and that's all I can control. So, okay, next, you know?
Yeah. So, the only thing that I'm not real good at all the time is learning from my mistakes. I seem to keep making them.
Sometimes, you know, I read this parable one day. It was about like sometimes you get a message and you don't listen, and you keep not listening, and the message is subtle, and then finally some people just need to get over the head with a brick pretty much to listen.
Right.
You know, so I always try to like listen for, or look for things now, and just not really look for them because that's not correct, but listen. You know, like if something's happens, sometimes it happens for a reason. Just pay attention to it, and you know, even to the point where like if like someone sent me an email the other day and it really pissed me off, and they asked me to do something, and I was really pissed, and I thought the person was ballsy, but I did it because I said, there's a reason. I don't even know this person. Why am I acting so viscerally to this?
Yeah.
So let me do it because maybe I'll get something out of doing it. I'm certainly not really costing me anything to do it. So let me do it, and maybe I'll get something out of it, whether it's like more understanding or just, you know,
right.
I don't know, but I try to like look for little things like that now, and try to, like, instead of thinking, oh, this guy's a dick, I think, well, maybe this is an opportunity for me to have some personal growth experience. And if it's not, like, it's costing me 0 basically. So let me just, you know, roll the dice. I've certainly, you know, rolled the dice on a lot more stupid things, right? So
yeah, well, I used to think that everything happens for a reason. I used to think it all the time, and I think I changed my mind on that, and now I really think that everything can happen for a reason.
Yeah, everything can happen for a reason.
You can find a reason in all of it, you know, and you can find something to learn from anything. You know, you can find the growth anywhere you look hard enough. You'll find why something happened, or you'll find like, okay, what could I learn from it? Maybe you won't find the exact why, but you will find something that you can go, okay, I won't do that anymore. Or maybe it makes me think about this, or, you know, gets my mind onto something else. And then you go, wow, well, I would have never thought about that if it wasn't for that, you know?
Yeah.
So anyhow.
The problem is we can't connect the dots moving forward.
Oh,
that's the problem, you know? And
we want to so bad. Right. We want to know what does the future hold, man?
Why did this happen? Where's the next, where's the next thing to leap off of? I had this client many years ago, and he was sober. He was a recovered alcoholic, and I went into his office the very first day I met him, and he had the Serenity prayer up on his wall, and I don't even know why I knew this. I was probably, I don't know, it was just a long time ago. I don't even know why I knew the Serenity prayer, but I said, oh, that's a Serenity prayer. So when you tell someone who's going through a program, right, like when you, anybody who's going through any kind of recovery, when you show them that you have any kind of understanding, it's automatically like, your best friends almost. It's
Oh
like,
yeah, your brothers for life.
Yeah, the guy you understand. And he I'll never forget. He made a comment to me, and to be honest, is sometimes when shitty things have happened to me, I always think of this. He said, "Craig, there's a dirty 4-letter word that fixes everything." And I said, "What's that?" He said, "It's time."
Ah.
And I can't tell you. So that really helped me out a lot, because I like everybody, get in bad situations. Life throws you some, curveballs or some shitty passes, right? And but sometimes, like ever since I heard that, I know that he's right, and I'm like, okay, I just got to weather the storm. It doesn't mean sometimes I wish it could happen to hop in a time machine and push it forward a year.
Yeah.
But I know this is going to be all sorted out. I just got to. This is not life-threatening. This is, we'll figure this out, whatever it is, good, bad, or ugly. We'll get through it. I just don't know the answer, but time is going to fix this for sure.
Man, that thought holds so much.
Yeah, and it really...
Like, it can be a lot of time or it can be a little time, and sometimes that depends on you,
Yeah, yeah. But knowing that like that whatever the shitty situation is, at some point in time, whether it's 6 months from now or a year, I know for a fact I'll be looking back at this and saying, man, that was difficult. We got through it, like everything else. So that really, I don't know how we got off on all this, but good conversation.
But it was fun. We saw the sights on the way,
Let me ask you, I'll ask you a couple more career stuff, and then I want to talk about your personal life. I want to get to know the real Bryon Bos.
No, you don't.
You said something yesterday, and I didn't understand it, and I want to see, in case anybody else didn't understand it. You said you have holds with major artists for songwriting, but no major cuts. Can you just explain what that means? Because I found it really interesting.
Yeah, it's so I don't know why I actually did know. I didn't know the inner workings of it, but I did know the term, like the terminology. When I moved here to Nashville, it's a very Nashville thing, I feel like it was probably really formed here, that whole process. And basically, a songwriter pitches songs. You write songs, and either you're going to sing them yourself or you're going to pitch them to artists. And some guys have a song plugger. If they're not published by a publishing company or a label or whatever, then they may have a plugger that goes around and shops their songs to different labels or artists or whatever. I think for most people, I would say the consensus is you want a publishing deal so that your publisher will go do that. And you may have the publisher may have a couple of pluggers or whatever it is, but they go shop your songs around in whatever form you have them in. And nowadays I'm finding that form needs to be pretty freaking good. That demo has to sound fantastic for anybody to listen to it, unless you're one of the top songwriters out there and the artist, you're friends with them, and you go, hey man, I just wrote this yesterday and I think you'll love it. Here's me on the acoustic singing it. I'm sure that happens between, Blake Shelton and Craig Wiseman. But it's not going to happen between me and anybody.
Sure. No, I totally get it. Well, most people doesn't. That's why all these guys, a lot of the younger artists, especially that I'm interviewing, they do a lot of tracks and demos and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah. And it's a process, and it's a lot of work, and it's not cheap. But the fact is that if you write a song and somebody likes it, well, fortunately for myself, and I know you've talked with Chris Hurst. Chris and I have done a lot of writing together, and on our stuff that's been pitched and anything that's gotten on hold, is basically the process is we've gotten it pitched by either, again, a publisher or a plugger, and it got to an artist, and the artist said, I really like this. I dig this song. We're actually cutting a record here in the next few months or whatever, or they're looking right now for songs and they like this one, so they want to put it on hold. And I don't know the exact process, and I'm sure if I would sit down with a publisher and really dig deep, although we have asked the question, truth is, I think a hold is a very verbal thing. It's basically Montgomery Gentry says they love your song. They might cut it.
So it's like a gentleman's agreement.
It is. It's basically a handshake over an email or a phone call or whatever it might be that says they want to put this song on hold, and you say, okay, I won't pitch it to anybody else. I'm not going to give it to somebody else. Now you can do what you want. I mean, you want to go pitch it. And, the difference between a Montgomery Gentry and a Kenny Chesney, I don't know. Kenny Chesney, obviously he's still selling out arenas and his record sales are still through the roof and everything. So, I mean, would you make more money off a Kenny Chesney cut or a Montgomery Gentry cut? And let's just say, he happened to hear the same song that Montgomery Gentry did, but they wanted to put it on hold. Well, you know what? Your integrity and your honor in town, I think, is pretty strong. So if you said you're going to put it on hold with Montgomery Gentry, you don't get to go shop it to somebody else.
But they don't give you a deposit for that?
No, they don't give you nothing.
But that's like going to say, someone's selling a house. You're saying, hey, I'm going to buy that thing. Okay. I'm not going to sign a contract. I'm not going to give you an offer, but I do want your house. Well, what the fuck?
Well,
I mean, and then at least you could have an expiration date. Like,
I think logically it doesn't make any sense. I mean, if they want the song, they either want it or they don't. But, I mean, you hear stories about them cutting 50 songs in the studio and obviously cutting it down to 12, so they cut 50 songs in the studio and 38 of them are going to go in the trash or maybe just held on to for who knows what happens in the future.
Sure.
But I do know that if you were to get a call from somebody else and they said, hey, we really like this tune, and you're like, well, sorry, man, they got it on hold. You can make that same phone call to that other person and say, hey, guess what? Somebody else wants it. What's going on?
Yeah.
I mean, but there's the one thing I do like, as much as somebody might, know the flaws and different things in the inner workings of Nashville and Music Row and all this stuff. I have found that the loyalty, the integrity and that kind of honor system where it's like, if you're in a room in a songwrite or whatever it might be, and let's say you didn't put anything on the table. I mean, there's 4 of you in a room and you're the guy who sat in the corner and none of those lyrics came from you. None of the melody came from you. Nothing came from you, but you were in that room and you were supposed to be helping out. You're still going to get your piece of the pie on the songwrite. And that's because it's just, that's the way the business works. And so that honor system, that integrity, loyalty system, some of us might say, well, that guy doesn't deserve nothing. Like, what did he put? He didn't put anything on the song. He didn't write the song. I mean, he sat in the room, and I've had times like that where I've felt like that about somebody. I've had times where I've felt like, gosh, how much of the song did I really contribute?
Yeah.
I don't know. But that's the way it works. And so I think it's the same thing with a hold. And then, I remember hearing the story of, the Rascal Flatts, Here Comes Goodbye. You remember that song?
I don't, man. I'm sorry.
Well, it's one of their biggest emotional songs, like big, big hit, big ballad, like boom, tearjerker. Well, the guy who wrote that, and I forget if it was a co-writer, if it was just him. It was probably, I don't know, but his name's Chris Sly, and he was an American Idol guy. And he tells the story that he got the message or whatever. They told him that, hey, Rascal Flatts, they want to put the song on hold. He's like, okay, cool, whatever. So I didn't hear anything. And all of a sudden, 9 months later, he said, he gets a call and said, hey, just want you to know, they cut the song and it's going to be a single. And he's like, oh, wow. 9 months later. Cool. Okay, great.
Took this the time to have a baby. So it probably, he had a baby, a music baby.
and then another 9 months later, he makes a little money from it.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
The way that works and everything, I'm pretty sure it works that way in a lot of genres. I know country music is the main one, but there's a lot of cross writing and different stuff. I mean, Taylor Swift does so much stuff in Nashville. Meghan Trainor, like I know some of the people that she's written with and everything, and that's done in Nashville along the same lines and the same process and all that. So pop, country, that whole realm, like I would think it's about the same. you know, and that's just the way the music industry works. Now, does everybody have integrity? Probably not.
Well, I don't think Mick Jagger and Keith Richards got that memo, because I think, you know, I don't know if you know anything about the Stones. There's a guy named Mick Taylor who played guitar for them, and he played on like their best albums ever, and he got no writing credit on anything, and he wound up leaving the band. Yeah. But that was all.
I know more of those stories too. Yeah, with even later bands and stuff, and guys they get nothing out of it, you know. And it is a cutthroat business. It's a business. And it's, you know, there's a lot of money in the business.
Well, I think it's like any other business, man. You got to try to identify the concrete rules up front, and what, you know, past performance is often indicative of future expectations. So, you know.
Yeah, I'd rather be the guy that everybody looks at and says, "Oh, I know he's not going to screw me."
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's a much easier way to go through your life, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure, man. Let's talk about some personal questions. So, I was single or married. I know you're married. You guys have 2 kids together. You have 2 daughters from a prior relationship.
Yeah, been married coming up on 10 years. We have a 5 and an 8-year-old. We met 11 years ago, my wife and I.
How'd you guys meet?
I had 2. I had 2 girls at the time. I had my first daughter at 19. My second at 20. I was married at 19. And divorced at 22. I mean, there's a whole lot of story there, but I'll put it simple and be fair and say that we were both young, and it was really hard on her. You know, she was a couple of years younger than me. It was hard on her to have 2 kids all of a sudden, and she had a tough upbringing, and it pushed her for the worst. And I ended up having the kids, and I was a single dad for 7 years until I met my wife now. And she, nobody ever takes the full place of mom, but she definitely became mom in a big way. They call her mom. She's been mom to them for the last 10 years, their teenage years. I mean, teaching them how to do a lot of stuff,
How did you meet your wife? Darcy is her name?
Yeah. My wife's name's Darcy. We met through one of my best friends, and he still lives in California, but him and his wife, they all went to school together. They're all about the same age. We would hang out a lot going by. We'd go up to Starbucks a whole bunch of times, go and see people, whoever's hanging out up there or whatever. This was back in California. And there was a tanning salon 2 doors down. And he would always say, "I'm going to stop in and say hi to my friend Darcy." So he'd stop in and say hi. I never went in with him. I just never, I'd be like, okay, whatever. I just keep going. And then one time I saw her at a bar out by the beach. It was out with some friends, and we were just kind of hanging out down in the scene down there. And I saw her, and I was like, wait a minute. That's Darcy. That's the girl that Sean is always saying hi to. And I was like, wow, she looks fantastic. Well, that's the first thing that goes through my mind.
Yeah, of course. You're a guy.
I'm like, wow. And so I call Sean, and I'm like, dude, Darcy's out here. And he's like, yeah. He's like, go say hi. And I'm like, I never even really met her. And he's like, dude, you've met her. I think there was one time I stood in the doorway and was like, hi, I'm Bryon. Of the tanning salon. But I didn't. And it was like a couple weeks later, this other girl was best friends with her. They were out doing some stuff one night, and
wait. I just realized something. So, the guy with the whole history of working in Christian churches met his wife at a bar on the beach.
Yeah,
awesome. That's awesome, man.
And it was actually,
the irony of that. That's awesome.
Our first date or our second date was a Save the Boobies night.
Nice. As it should be.
Yeah. I love that statement because it's so obtrusive, but at the same time, so effective, Oh
my God. That's too funny, man.
It's all about breast cancer, but yet it's I'm uncomfortable right now with the shirt that you're wearing. Anyway, but yeah, so she was out with a friend one night, and they called Sean, and they were like, hey, what are you doing tonight? And he was like, I'm over at my friend Brian's house. You guys should come by. And I was actually living with my parents at the time. And
with the girls.
With the girls.
Yeah.
I had the 2 girls, and I was working 50 to 60 hours a week, and my mom was doing so much of the day-to-day stuff. It just was like, I was like, what am I going to do? I'm going to go out and get an apartment. Basically, my thought was, I'm going to meet somebody sometime here soon, and then obviously I'm going to get out of here, we'll move and blah, blah, blah. So anyways.
Well, you know what, though? It's the way you explain your family life with your folks being so giving and loving. I mean, like, it's kind of, I would seem to be a natural thing that you would do. Like, you'd be doing the girls almost a bit of a disservice not doing that,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And my parents were, I couldn't, it's that, again, a whole other conversation about how much help they were and how much support and everything with all of the stupid decisions that I made. So anyway, but yeah, so they came over that night, Darcy and another friend of ours, this girl, Jessie. And I don't know, we didn't really talk that much that night, but I kept looking at her going, gosh, I should talk to her. I should just talk to her. Like, I should just kind of like, I don't know. But, for me, man, I had the 2 girls. They were, I think, 7 and 8 at the time. And I just thought in my mind, it was like, that's not an easy thing to take on. So for me to pursue a girl, I don't know. I just felt like it was like it wasn't fair in my mind, whether I'm wrong, completely wrong or not. It just wasn't fair in my mind. Like, I pursue a girl and say, I really want to be with you, or I really would like to see if we could work this out. But you want to take my kids too.
Wait a minute. You had all these things going through your head and you hadn't even talked to her yet?
No, I've always had those things going
through
my head.
Oh my God. Holy shit.
That was always in my head.
Wait a minute. I'm just thinking, wait a minute. I thought he just hadn't even met her yet. And he's thinking about,
so those
we'll be getting married Thursday. And I just want to, I'm like, whoa, talk about
in my mind, that was my constant thought. So now I see this girl that Sean has always told me I should meet her anyways. And I just was always like, I'm not gonna, she's 22. I'm like, what does she know about, a 7 and 8-year-old girl? I'm like, great. And you know what? So the next day I get a text and it says, do you know who this is? And I'm in the car with my buddy Sean. And I said, whose number is this? Do you know this number? And he said, he said, that's Darcy's. He said, I gave her your number.
There you go. You're done.
He said, I gave her your number, and I said, you better text him because he won't text you.
That's awesome, stupid, man.
Huh? And so I said, well,
you got to give her credit for doing that at 22, by the way.
Heck yeah. And I could give her a whole lot more credit.
Yeah.
And I will say this. I know I told you this, when we talked before, that at that point, the girls were adorable. And everybody loved them, any girl I would ever meet. And I dated a couple girls in that time frame. I didn't want to bring anybody home and have a situation that was just weird. And I just didn't want to be that guy with my girls or with any other girl, So, plenty of girls would be like, oh my God, they're adorable. Who wouldn't want to be their mom? And it was like so easy for girls to think how cute it
like
was.
Like they're pets.
Like, here's my Shih Tzu.
I want one.
I want one.
I know.
But so I say all that to say that one of the first questions when we had a serious talk, her and I, after dating a couple months, 3 months, I said, hey, obviously there's no secret in this. I mean, I've got the girls and you and I, are starting to talk about like, what does future look like to you? She didn't want to just date somebody and I didn't want to just date somebody. We were looking for the right person,
Sure.
And I said, I mean, how do you feel about that? This is a 7 and 8-year-old girl, girls. And she said, I'm sure it's not going to be easy, but I'd be willing to give it a shot. And I was like, that sounds very like, if you think about that, somebody would be like, give it a shot. You don't just give it a shot.
No, it sounds really very realistic, very mature, actually.
Mature thing I'd heard from so many and I was like, this girl's 22, and that was such a mature statement and a genuine, sincere statement. And I was
very much.
I really think that I could fall in love with this girl really fast. And I asked her to marry me 6 months into dating, and
20 minutes later.
Yeah. It was like we were in the backyard talking, and I had this whole conversation in my head going. I was like, do you know what it's like to have children? And but yeah, 6 months later we got engaged, and 6 months after that we got married. And I mean, I love my wife with everything I am, man, and she's fantastic. She's been the most incredible support to me, and now, you know, in this foodie world that she's doing, I'm getting to be more of a support to her, and it's awesome. I mean, I feel like we're an indestructible team.
Awesome.
I mean, and I say that with all the confidence in the world, man. You know.
Cool.
So anyhow.
I'm going to ask you 3 more questions, and we'll wrap it up. This one I'm going to ask you because you being a guy raised in a church environment, I thought it'd be an interesting question for you. So the question is, if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Well, you know, I actually would like to answer that with the opposite. What do I not want him to say? And I only say that because that's the first thing that comes to my mind, because
Bryon, it's my show. Answer my questions.
I know. Well, I sure would love to hear him say a lot, man.
Yeah.
But the only thing I don't want is I don't want him to look at me and go, man, you didn't do everything you could. You know,
yeah.
And you know, you hear that whole thing about, you know, there's so many unfulfilled dreams in a graveyard, you know, and all these things about people's talents and giftings. And I believe dude, I'm as real as they come. I'm probably the most liberal conservative you've ever met. Like, I mean, my view on a lot of things is that just because I'm a Christian and I believe in a biblical standpoint, like, dude, if I believe in that, then I believe in a God that gave me the choice to do what I do. So what the hell would I do anything different to you? Like, you got your choices too, just like I do, man. Like, you know, and that's what I believe. So all that to say, like, I think about giftings and talents, and I think about what you have in you, and whether or not you believe they came from a creator or they just came from hard work, or just, man, I don't know. I was born with these genes. Like, I can do these things. I don't know. Everybody believes in something different, but I believe that we all have so much potential, and whether something's a natural gift or you have to work hard at it, I just don't want to end up wherever I end up. And you know what, dude? If we die, get buried, and turn to freaking dust, then guess what? I was wrong. Nothing's going to happen because of it. You know what I mean? Like, but if we don't, and I get to stand before this God, I just don't want him to look at me and go, man, you could have done so much more.
Well, you know, for whatever it's worth, I think if you answer that question for yourself, I don't think you'll get the wrong answer from anybody you'll be standing in front of.
Right.
For whatever that's worth.
No, it's worth a lot to me, man. You know, I could be totally wrong. So, and if I am, again, it's all to dust in the end anyways.
I hear you. Who's had the biggest influence on you in your life in general?
Absolutely my dad. And I mean, that's such a, I could give you a bunch of artists, you know, as far as music and different things in specific realms, but my dad's a good man, and he's, you know, one thing he's always said is that no matter what somebody else does, doesn't negate your responsibility to do the right thing. And the right thing is different in all of our minds in a sense, you know, but, you know, treating people right, having integrity, and caring about people and putting family first, and, you know, all those things. Like, my dad taught me all of that. My dad taught me how to, you know, lead people in a song. And you know what? You know, the church does it one way, but guess what? So does the concert you go to, because every one of those dudes and chicks on stage that want to sing and want you to be chanting the lyrics with them, they're doing the same thing, man. They just want you to be involved in what they're doing, you know, and involved meaning I'm going to buy your record. I'm going to follow you on every social media platform. I want to be in your life. I want to follow you where you go. And my dad taught me that. He did it in church, you know, and basically he taught me all that stuff.
How often do you speak to your dad now?
My wife. You know, I mean, all those things, you know, so.
How often do you speak to your dad often, or?
Oh, yeah.
Like how often?
Well, he's in California, so we FaceTimed yesterday. He'll randomly FaceTime us. We'll randomly call. I would say almost at least every other day.
That's really cool. That's good.
I don't know. And if it would be every day, I could, but there's probably days it's just you're busy and it's like,
Right.
But we're FaceTime a lot. And, I actually talked to him yesterday because I actually had to borrow a little bit of money from him to get a piece of equipment that I said, hey, I don't have it, but I need this equipment tomorrow. Is there any way you could help me? I'll get you back next week.
Oh, great.
And, and I have that family. I will say this financially over the years, like even at that, like my mom and dad and my grandma and my family, like we're just that family, man. Like if family's family, I feel so bad for the families that, can't stand each other and have, so much, between them that's, whether it's disagreements and all those things. And I don't know what that's like. And I don't say that that's wrong, but man, I just don't know I don't know what that's like. My family's, we've never gone through that.
That's great. It's nice that you're like so appreciative of that too, man.
I'm fortunate. I could say fortunate, lucky, blessed, whatever you want to call it.
All of them.
But the fact is that, and I feel for the people that don't have that. And some people don't want that. Some people care less. Leave me alone. Let me be me and I do my thing, and hey, if that's your choice, but for those who really wish that, the family members were, a little bit more in their life and stuff. I mean, yeah, I would just encourage people, man, to reach out,
I asked you how often because my older son, he's 27, and getting him on the phone is like, and so I'm always wondering, like, shit.
Nah, he's busy. I probably was that way at 27.
Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. Because I'll call him, like, even if I'm pissed at him, I'll call him, like, just because I know he's having a hard day or he's and I'll call him and say, hey, man, I'm just calling to check up on him. He goes, listen, I'm right in the middle of something. I'll call you back. I'm like, yeah, the freaking phone call never arrives. I'm like, man, what the hell? Yeah. So I was just like,
I probably was different at that time. I mean, I think as I get a little older, I take that back. Now that we're in Tennessee and my family's still in California, it's become a little bit more of like,
okay. He's around he's 20 minutes, half hour away. So maybe that's
probably took it for granted when we all lived in the same town, and it was like, oh, come on, Dad, I'm gonna see you tomorrow. It's fine. God, dude, I'm busy right now.
Okay.
Now I'm like,
you made me feel better.
How's it going? You guys out there smoking cigars? How come I can't be back there with you? Yeah, so me and one of my brothers and his wife, we live out here. We moved out here.
Oh, one of your brothers lives out there with you?
Yeah.
Oh, so he lives the younger one.
Huh?
The youngest one?
The youngest one, yeah. He's 35, I think. Him and his wife moved out here a week and a half after us, and we live about 15 minutes away from each other.
That's awesome, man. That's great.
And we spent a good amount of time together, my family and him and his wife.
Do they have kids?
No, they don't.
Okay.
They've been trying for a lot of years, and it's a tough situation, man.
Sure.
It's been a rough one, and they're still working on it. So, but, my other brother, he still lives in town with my parents back in California. So we always, like, whenever we're together here and they're together there, we'll FaceTime together and be like, what are you guys doing over there?
That's cool, man. Very cool.
Yeah, anyhow.
Hey, one more question, and I'm going to let you go because I really appreciate everything. What's your definition of happiness?
Oh, man. I would say I got to tell you, man, I feel like I feel very ungrateful because I don't think I'm as happy as I should be. And I hate it because I think about it a lot, and I think about the things that I don't have, and I think about the things that I want to attain, and I think about the things that I haven't got to do yet. And I keep saying I, and there's a lot of I in there, but there's also a lot of we in there. And I like me and my wife and my kids and all those things that we want to do, we want to get to in life and all these things. And it makes me feel like I'm not happy. And there's times when my wife and I talk and we're like, it's like we have that conversation. Are you happy? Are you not happy? Like, I feel like sometimes I'm just not happy with life. And that word comes up so much. And I really think like my definition stems from that, because I do feel I give a disservice to happiness in my life, to what I do have, and this first world problems, basically, like, come on, man. Like, we have so much to be grateful for, to be thankful for. Like, I have a fantastic life. I really do. I have a great job. I have an incredible family. I get to do music for a living, and all this stuff. But yet I have so much more that I want to do, so it affects my happiness. Like, that's so stupid. Like, come on, man. Like, just be, content with where you're at. So my definition is fulfillment, man. Like, have you fulfilled what you want to do, what you can do, what's in front of you? That's happiness. Being able to fulfill the dreams, the goals, the stupid things, man. Like, I want to be able to go on vacation and not have to worry about this or whatever or that. I don't know, man. Like, it's the little things that count for me. I'm extremely happy with my wife. I'm extremely happy with my children. I love my kids. I'm extremely happy with the job that I get to do. Am I happy with every bit about it? No, I'm not. But it's probably because I don't get to fulfill certain things that I want. So mine is really, you think about the pursuit of happiness. Well, you know what? Mine's always a pursuit of fulfillment, being able to fulfill, long-awaited dreams and, accomplishments. And, I'm not a 5-year plan guy. Like, I don't have a calendar up on my wall saying, like, when you get here, you're going to get to do this, this, and this. I'm not a great planner, but I have inside of me so much that I want to see and so much that I want to do and accomplish and get to. And the same for my wife and for my family. Like, I want us to be able to see all those things. Like, I've found myself now, I don't want to be successful for prideful reasons. Like, I want to be successful so that my family so that not only is their future set, but yet they can look at every day and go, I'm not without just the simple things, and again, what a crappy way to put it, because yes, we live in America and we have so much freedom and so many things that, most of the world don't. We're part of the 90% and I mean, part of the 2%, sorry. And, the rest of the world lives in this whole different realm as us, but yet it's still our lives, man. We still live this life. We still got to pay the mortgage at the end of the month, or the rent at the end of the month, or whatever bills they are. We still got to pay those bills. And if you don't pay them, you're going to lose it. You lose the house, or you lose the place, or whatever. So all that to say, like, just because my mortgage is this and not that, like, it's still my life, man. I still get to go through those struggles and feel like, why am I not happy because there's not enough money in the bank? Or, you know what I mean? It's a sucky thing to think, but it's fulfillment, man. I want to be able to fulfill the things that I've dreamt about since I was a kid, and being able to do. That's it to me. And I hate saying that, because I feel like that's like, God, man, can't you just be happy? Like, dude, you got a great family. I don't even have that,
But here's the good news. With your energy, if you stay focused, I would bet if we have this conversation in 5 years, it'll be a different situation if you stay focused.
Yeah. Well, I sure appreciate hearing that, man.
For whatever that's worth.
And I take those type of things to heart. And I'll never forget that you said that, because when something does happen, I'm going to go, man, I remember just sitting talking with Craig.
Oh, man, you can call me up any time and I'll tell you the same thing. You don't have to wait till 5 years though. But hey, listen, man, I cannot thank you enough for your time, your being so transparent, so open and honest, and so candid about yourself. Is there anything you'd like to promote that you guys are working on now that people need to know about? To support you online?
Man, well, first off, right back at you about your time and stuff. Thanks so much for having me. If anybody wants to hear anything, see anything, again, on YouTube is our little family vlog. It's called The Bos Life. And Bos is spelled just B-O-S. You can find that on there. And as far as me and any of my music, I've got a SoundCloud with a handful of demos on there, basically some of my favorites, and it's just soundcloud.com Bryon Bos, and it's Bryon Bos. And you'll find a good handful of songs on there. And other than that, I used to have a website and some other stuff, but since I've kind of strayed from pursuing the artist side and more pushed into the writing side and stuff, it's kind of been dormant for a little while. So there's not much else out there like that, but my SoundCloud's got some stuff. I mean, you can find random stuff on YouTube and whatever here and there, but Spotify and stuff. But that's all current. Great. SoundCloud, YouTube, man.
And it's soundcloud.com/Bryon, Bryon Bos, Bos. Thank goodness you have a normal thing. Chris's SoundCloud is like
Sir
Charles. It's like, yeah, well, I know it's his dog. I get it, but like,
yeah,
just Sir Charles wasn't good enough. He had to have like.
I told him that, Craig. That's our SoundCloud.
Like the alphabet.
That's all of our songs. And he's like, I want it to be this. And I'm like, you're insane, dude.
I was wondering if he sat there and said, okay, let me pick the most difficult URL that no one will remember so nobody ever finds my music online. Then he said he found that URL and then he used it. I'm like, Chris. Anyway, that's the Bos Life, Bos on YouTube, soundcloud.com, Bryon Bos, Bryon Bos. Man, thank you so much again. You're an awesome dude. I feel like I made a new friend here. And I want to thank, for sure, man. I want to thank everybody for listening. I hope you enjoyed this interview. Thanks so much again to Bryon Bos for spending his time with us. I truly appreciate it. Look for him online. And go to Everyone Loves Guitar. You could sign up to get notified about future episodes, along with some other cool new things we'll be doing for guitar players. Now, be nice. Go play your guitar and have some fun. Till next time, I'm out. Peace, everybody. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.